If Dragon Ball, Fist of the North Star, and Saint Seiya are considered the grandfather of fighting shonen, Kinnikuman can be considered the grandfather of those, as not only did it come before them, but also set up a lot of standards needed for a good action-packed show. In fact, it inspired many popular shonen such as One Piece. Kinnikuman at first started off as a gag manga parodying Ultraman at the time, but over the course of the series, the Ultraman elements were dropped, such as the techniques that were parody versions of the main characters, the ability to turn into a giant, and even the kaiju stopped appearing. In exchange, it became a wrestling-based fighting shonen, where Chojins, basically Superman, fight each other for glory or for the sake of the universe. There are a huge selection of Chojin types, each with their own belief system, like the Justice Chojin, fighting for the safety of those without power, and the Devil Chojin, who fight to rule over everybody and aren't afraid to fight dirty. Like in One Piece, there's a huge variety of characters in terms of design, actually sent to them by fans who read Shonen Jump at the time. Some of the designs get merged into a more fitting character, but by the authors, it is worked by the duo Yoshinori Nakai and Takashi Shimada, also known as Yude Tamobo. And they do credit the kids who sent and adults who sent them the designs. Some of these characters become even protagonists and even major antagonists. For example, Robin Must, a fan favorite character. What makes it so great is that the character designs are not just for show, but actually affect the fighting style of each Chojin, each using their body shape and size to full effect, coming with unique strengths and weaknesses. An example is Pressman, a Chojin made out of glass, who uses his sharp edges to cut. His opponents can hurt themselves when they attack him with karate chops, and he can absorb sunlight, releasing a powerful beam of light. Another example is Planetman, who is made out of all the planets in our solar system, and has this ring of Saturn, which he can throw like a saucer to cut his opponents. Another ability is to freeze his opponents with his legs, which are representing the planets that are furthest away from the sun. Kinnikuman is also one of few shonen that grew up with its audience after the main run concluded, but its sequel, Kinnikuman Nisei, and its continuation since 2011 were released on a more mature-oriented magazine, where they aren't restricted from showing things inappropriate for a younger audience. There's also the theme of friendship in the show, which usually is associated with random power-ups of nowhere and Deus Ex Machina. Basically, the friendship power can be considered a bullshit power-up. However, in Kinnikuman, it is one of few shows that uses friendship power appropriately, as it comes with conditions, weaknesses, and can even be harvested by the enemy. The 2011 continuation of Kinnikuman also came with improvements addressing many issues of the original run as well. Examples such as improving the art quality, showing a few of the improvements and changes that appeared in the sequel, adding advancements made by shonen that came after it, visually highlighting a power called the Burning Inner Strength, giving more screen time to characters that didn't get to do a lot, as well as getting even more out of the character designs of older characters and expanding more on the lore, as the good gods who used to appear only as faces are getting more explored, like the evil gods did prior. Meaning, unlike many other shonens who continued longer than they needed to be. Kinnikuman 2011 continuation doesn't devalue what came before it, nor does it feel like a cash grab, as one can see the love and care of the previous series put in it. As for the characters, Kinnikuman is also known as Prince Suguru Kinniku, is one of few corruptible main characters. He doesn't have an evil demon or anything in him, but he is a selfish adult. At first he appears to be very unreasonable, unbearable, and unreliable, but from time to time he shows signs of humanity in him, needed for a shonen protagonist you look up to. Over the course of the series, while he is scared and doesn't want to participate in certain events, like fighting a major antagonist or villain, he made up his mind and fights for those he loves, developing courage and discovering the hidden power burning inner strength. He would cast his old techniques for once taught by former Hawaiian champion Prince Kamehame, and eventually developing his own ones. Over time, the respect of all people who hated him, he gains the respect of them, pretty much every living soul but his parents, who already loved him. Meet is Kinnikuman's sidekick or as a servant. He will be his closest friends while not participating in every fight and not being really powerful in general. He is often involved in some shape or form in Kinnikuman's business. You have Terryman, who is a Chojin from America, Texas, who got his worldview changed thanks to Kinnikuman, and saw the greater things in life over the things he felt they need to do. Often he is the first person Kinnikuman can rely on the most. You have Robin, current Chojin champion at the start of the story, and one of the most respected characters and a real role model. But over the course of the series, he will go through a major character arc and is one of the most developed characters in the show. There are many other examples, but listing them all would be making this very long as it needs to be. A criticism can be seen the shift from parody to a completely different product. So if you don't like both of those, the shift isn't something you will like. It can be a turn off. But the tonal shift happens gradually enough to feel natural. Another thing that the manga is victim of some changes in a way of things are viewed now. What used to be for kids back in the day isn't maybe even intolerable for adults now, as there are some very random, insanely brutal scenes or a character based on the history of something that country doesn't want to be associated or reminded of. Continuing Kinnikuman, despite having concluded with a sequel that is also concluded, can be off-putting for some people who know how the story will end. But 2011 continuation fills a lot of plot holes that remained and creates a setup for a better transition to the new generation. Death can appear as meaningless since, like in Dragon Ball, characters come back to life. A 2011 version fixes that issue by expanding on the story of the Chojin graveyard and its mechanics, as well as a way to remove it. Meaning after that and the new generation continuation, death will be permanent. But even before that, there were strict conditions that made it impossible for any character to come back at any point. It wasn't as easy as in the modern shonen anyways. And the character designs, especially the main character, can be off-putting. The manga is also ongoing. The show may not end great, like the original run, which ended during the Scramble for the Throne arc. In conclusion, Kinnikuman is a great shonen and a must-read for shonen fans, especially those who love wrestling.